And again, I'm going to read context. And this question, I'm going to pick two candidates to answer. This is a question regarding African American, Latino, and immigrant students. African American, Latino, and immigrant students continue to be disproportionately represented in school discipline data and persistently underperforming according to the academic achievement data on the California State Dashboard. What do you believe are the root causes to these issues, and what should be done to change outcomes for these student groups? What would you do to ensure that these families' voices are represented and their children's needs are met?
So, as part of this process, I spent quite a lot of time out in the community. So, we have roughly about 120 schools that sit in 39 beautiful neighborhoods, and almost, I think 49,000 students that go to public schools. And so, I think it's really important to, in business, for example, we always start with the customers. And when we say customers here in the public school system, it's really the families, the students, the schools, right, and the educators. And so we need to do that grassroots analysis, if you will, to really understand the needs and requirements and be able to then leverage that and build a school system that actually supports and meets those needs and requirements. So I would say the same approach needs to be applied here, which is to take a look at all the unique schools in each of their communities, understand our student population, understand what it takes to actually elevate the performance of all of these groups, and make sure that we consider all that as we're developing, whether it's curriculum, whether it's activities, whether it's admissions process, whatever the elements are in terms of running a really great school system, it has to start with the North Star, which is always our customer base, which in this case would be parents, kids, the schools and the educators themselves. So that would be sort of my overall perspective. I do empathize because I spend a lot of time talking to parents and kids as well. That from a cultural perspective and a background perspective, it's really important to understand that because every child is different. We've got children that learn differently, got specialty schools, specialty classes, and I've sat in them. So I think it's very important to recognize all that. Very important to keep programs that are working that really support specific populations and doing that without lowering the standards. I think we often think that we need to somehow lower the standards in order to meet those requirements. And I'd say no, you can actually raise the standards or keep the standards high, but make sure you understand the needs and requirements and adopt that. So I think that both of those things can coexist in the same system.
Thank you for the question. So I've had the privilege of working at We Children's Services for nearly 8 years, and the organization was founded by mental health workers and parents who saw huge disparities in Chinatown and for new immigrants in general. They couldn't access services, even publicly available services. Services weren't language. Um, uh, in language, and the folks who were providing those services were not culturally competent. And so activists and social workers built the organization around serving children and providing holistic support for the child, but also for the families to be able to be their child's providers and first teachers. And so it was a holistic approach, ensuring that they had access to housing support, to food, to healthcare, so that um, uh, they were whole to be able to provide for their children. And then on the other spectrum, for the children, we coordinated, or the organization and the activists coordinated educators to develop culturally competent curriculum for the children and for the families. So that they had firm rooting in their identities and didn't grow up feeling a sense of um, um, a loss of self-worth, trying to assimilate into a culture that didn't represent them. So, in summary, there's It's a lack of cultural competence, lack of language access, lack of infrastructure to get access basic needs. Um, API groups, new immigrant API groups are also hidden in the metrics that we see. A lot of folks are struggling with poverty, um, and
Thank you,
for our
Regina.
sorry.
Sorry. Your time is up, sweetie. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
thank you.